Welcome back. As we were listening, Decent Life Initiative is a presidential initiative which aims at changing the lives of millions of Egyptians to the better and to take them from a life to another life, a better life, leading a better life with better services, with better conditions, with better atmosphere, with better everything. And our political leadership is keen to transfer this experience to Africa, to our strategic depth, but this time on climate change. In light of our preparations and our pioneering role as the country which is going to host the coming COP27 summit, which is going to be hosted by Egypt exactly or particularly by the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. Here, we should speak about the Presidential Initiative for Africa on Climate Change. Well, Dr. Yasmin Fouad, Minister of Environment, participated recently in the 8th edition of the Ministerial Conference on Environment, which was held in the Senegalese capital, Dakar. To speak more about this and to shed more light on the important issue, we are very much delighted to have with us via phone Mrs. Amira Sayed, our journalist and political analyst. Thank you very much for being with us, Mrs. Amira.
Super honored to be with you. Thank you.
Let's go immediately to the very first question regarding Africa. Africa, can we say that the Black continent is the victim or the most vulnerable continent to be unfortunately suffering the negative impacts of climate change, despite the fact that the developed countries or the European, American or the West, to be accurate in specific, are partially responsible for the biggest part or the lion's share of the negative impacts of climate change?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, Africa's contributions to global emissions does not exceed 3% of the total emissions. Actually, Africa is the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. And though it is the most vulnerable to such negative impacts of climate change, it is the least equipped to cope up with such impacts. So it's very important to drive collective actions to support the climate action in Africa. And actually, this is the main priority of Egypt's presidency in COP27. That's going to be Africa's COP. Egypt is integrated both a continental and regional dimension in its agenda in COP27, and it is giving a top priority for 4 key areas: supporting the mitigation and adaptation measures, and also the loss and damage, offering the finance that's required to face the loss and damage of climate change, and also supporting the climate finance. When we are talking about climate finance in Africa, we have to mention that it is unfair, as I told you, it is unfair that the countries that does not contribute to the global emissions are the most impacted by such negative impacts, and they have to pay more to cope up with such negative impacts. And also the climate finance is insufficient because also it takes a long period to reach to find access to such funds. So Egypt is seeking to turn the previous commitments into implementation, and this is the key vision of the Egyptian presidency. Yeah.
Amen to that, and the international community should shoulder this responsibility because this is affecting the lives of millions of people. But let's go specifically into food security, for example. To what extent do you think that spreading awareness that climate change may affect directly food security? Now it's a must to speak like that and to go to this target. How to secure our food without combating climate change? This is contradictory, true?
Yeah, definitely. That's why Egypt also has a leading initiative in this area in particular, which is enhanced climate action through food, water, and energy nexus. Actually, this initiative was launched by the Ministry of International Cooperation that seeks to enhance the climate action through these 3 important sectors: food, energy, and water. And actually, there will be a water pavilion in COP27. And definitely, when we are talking about like the impact of climate change, it has a direct impact on agriculture sector. Now, the changes and fluctuations in climate and weather and the extreme weather patterns, it has a direct impact on the cultivation. Now, many agricultural crops cannot be cultivated in Africa due to the severe weather patterns that happened recently. So it's very important to ensure food security for the African continent. And definitely we have to take into consideration that also Africa is grappling with the ramifications of COVID-19 and also the recent geopolitical challenges. So now Africa is like grappling with several challenges in addition to the severe impacts of climate change. So it's very important to support and enhance the climate action to enhance Africa's sustainable development agenda. And when we are talking about food security or supporting the climate action in agricultural sector, it's very important to adopt a holistic approach. When we are talking about climate action, we are dealing with that within the framework of the sustainable development agenda. So it's very important to adopt such holistic approach and also to turn the previous commitments and pledges into real action and tangible action. Yep.
If millions of farmers in many African countries cannot cultivate their lands due to drought or flooding, they are going to resort to illegal migration, and the West is going to suffer from the influx of illegal migration. So it's going to be a vicious circle. So to cooperate together for the best interest of the African peoples is a win-win situation. True?
Yes, definitely. Exactly. Now, the United Nations is warning of the increasing numbers of the so-called climate refugees. This means because many people, especially those who are working, for example, in the agricultural sector, now they lost their jobs, so they have to, as you mentioned, to illegally migrate to another countries. A matter that also had a negative impact on both those who are migrating to other countries and also to the other countries that are also suffering from like economic situation and so on. So that's why I'm telling you that it's very important to deal with the climate action within the framework of sustainable development.
Amen to that. Let's decrease their sufferings. There are already struggles, there are already disputes or security issues. Let's at least face climate change, because this is something which is far from the disputes and struggles and stuff like that. But let me also focus on health. And let me focus on the mutual cooperation between different allies and different African states to maintain the health security, if I may call it this way, in our way or throughout our journey combating climate change.
Yes, definitely. The climate change, it has direct impact on public health. Whenever something negatively impacts the environment, it also has a negative impact on us. For example, if you have seen the wildfires, the heat waves, all these things that are the impact of the severe changes in climate, actually it has a direct impact on the public health of people. And that's why it's very important to adopt such holistic approach. Actually, the climate change now, it is not just a technical issue, it is a developmental issue. It has a direct impact on the development of countries. We are not just talking about environmental development. And actually now, if you mentioned at the very beginning of this segment that it's very important to raise awareness of people. People may think that climate change, that it is something that does not have a direct impact on their lives. It is an elite issue or a technical issue. But now we can see the direct impact of climate change on people's daily lives. So it's very important to raise public awareness also regarding this important issue and adopt and enhance the best practices. Actually, you mentioned that Egypt has an unprecedented initiative to we can say to enhance the living standards and changing people's lives in rural areas and in different governance nationwide, which is Decent Life Initiative. And now Egypt is seeking to take this initiative from local to global levels, as Minister of Environment Yasmin Fuad has mentioned in the African Minister
Decent Life Initiative,
the ministerial meeting of the African ministers.
Yeah.
So it's very important to enhance such global initiatives, local initiatives also to curb the impacts of climate change.
Thank you very much for being with us. And this was our episode. Stay tuned on Nile TV International always for more updates and for more details. Please log on to www.nileinternational.net. We were in the company of Mrs. Amira Sayed, our journalist. My name is Nermeen Abdurrahman, and I had all the pleasure to have with me in this episode of Breakfast Show my dear colleague and friend Amal Mukhtar. Stay tuned. Tomorrow is another episode and another crew.